Ramadan.
You are listening to the Mid-Morning Talk on Salam Media, and this is the Ramadan edition. It's time for our health segment. The month of Ramadan is a holy month of fasting for Muslims. Muslims are required to fast in this month, although there are certain exemptions, such as having an illness, some stages of pregnancy and breastfeeding, or even traveling. As for older persons, not all of them may be able to fast, especially if it is harmful to their health. Here's what they can do, and dietitian Amina Dindar joins me to give us insight. Assalamu alaikum, Amina. Shukran for joining me.
It's so nice to be part of your show again. Thank you.
All right. Well, first of all, Ramadan Mubarak to you and your family. And Ramadan is a blessed and holy month for everyone around the world. I mean, even the elderly and the youngsters, everybody gets excited for this month, alhamdulillah. But when it comes to the elderly, can they fast during the month of Ramadan?
Yes, I think it's such an exciting time all around. You know, the kids are so excited to fast. There's just a different feeling about a home where there's so many fasting people, and it's so wonderful. When it comes to the elderly, I think it is important that they seek advice from their medical doctors. Obviously, elderly patients that are in good health, it's actually quite beneficial for them to fast. However, if they do have medical conditions and they've been advised by the healthcare professional not to fast, then they shouldn't. So I think that's important for them, and also depending on their physical strength. So there's a lot of elderly people that are quite positive. They're always ready to fast. Even out of the month of Ramadan, you find a lot of elderly people fasting. You know, their Mondays and Thursdays and the Sunnah days, and that's quite important. So I think being able to assess their physical strength and their medical condition is quite important before they decide to fast or not.
Now, for those with comorbidities, how can they fast during this month of Ramadan? But before you answer that question, let's first find out what is or what are comorbidities.
So when it comes to comorbidities, it's health conditions that may affect, or it's medical conditions, things like high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, those type of illnesses are comorbidities. So we do find these comorbidities much like obviously older people have them. And then when it comes to older people, it is important that they need to understand their comorbidities. So, are they allowed to fast? They need to get medical advice from their doctor. When it comes to something like diabetes, it's quite important that their medication needs to be adjusted. Um, so it is important that they need to visit their doctor before Ramadan and discuss their plan in terms of their medication. So it might be that they need to change their medication, and this won't begin when Ramadan starts, but it might begin a week or two before Ramadan, where they would be requested to you know, adjust their medication, adjust their diet, adjust their eating habits, just so when Ramadan starts, they are more prepared. Other conditions like high blood pressure, they don't necessarily need or have any restrictions as long as their diet is well balanced, what they're eating at Siri time and iftar time is well balanced, their blood pressure is under control, and they're taking their medication regularly.
All right, let's talk about food now because I mean, besides uh, um, fasting, you know, we have to have seri, suhoor, and we also have to have iftar. But there are some foods that are beneficial to us, and it's not just for the elderly, but for everyone in general. But when it comes to the elderly, what foods are good to consume for suhoor and iftar?
So I think it's what's quite important is making sure the overall diet is quite nourishing. When it comes to seri time, they want to include in their seri whole grains. Whole grains could be their whole grain cereal like oats or cereals, whole grain bread. Those are good options to include as part of the iftar or the seri meal, because whole grains have a longer lasting energy release in the body. So it will sort of release energy for a longer period in the morning without, and not a quick release of energy, and then it will sort of drain them later in the day. So making sure the seri meal contains whole grains, having fresh fruits and vegetables in the morning is also quite important. They are high in fiber, they are high in nutrients. All our vitamins and minerals are come from our fruits and vegetables. So making sure they're part of the healthy diet is important. Another thing that we don't take or that we do take for granted is protein. So making sure we have proteins as part of the morning series is quite important. Protein sources could be things like eggs, milk, yogurt. And this is quite important because eggs is what keeps us full for a long period of time. And a lot of elderly, we find that a lot of elderly, their protein intake is much less. So as they get older, the intake of protein sort of declines. They eat less meat and fish, and they lean more towards their starches. Okay, so that's quite important. And then having a healthy source of fat is also important. So nuts are a great way to include healthy fats, something like olive oil or olives in the morning if they're having like a scrambled egg. Or a sandwich is also a nice idea. Something like evo is also a good idea. So I can just give some ideas. So something like having a bowl of oats, having that with either your low-fat milk or yogurt, adding some nuts and seeds to it is a good source of fat. Your yogurt would be your protein, and then topping that up with fresh fruits. So things like figs and pomegranates, we know they are sunnah foods. So including those are very beneficial. Your berries, so your strawberries, blueberries, always a good idea. Banana is also quite nice. It keeps you full for a longer period of time. Grated apple in cooked oats is also quite delicious. Another example would be having toast. So having toast with a scrambled egg. In your egg, you can include such a big variety of vegetables, which is amazing. Things like spinach, mushroom, peppers, and using a little bit of olive oil to prepare that, where you have your healthy fat, and then you just have like a nachi, an orange, or some berries on the side with that is such a wholesome seri.
Hmm. It does sounds wholesome and delicious, and definitely requires a lot of planning and a budget for it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, so this is not something that you can do last minute and decide, okay, today I'm going to have this and tomorrow I'm going to have that. It does require careful planning. And what some foods to avoid or to try to have less of during the month of Ramadan?
Okay, so I think what's important and the things that we tend to incline towards more in Ramadan are our fried foods and foods that are high in sugar. So when it comes to our savories, it's something that we tend to go for first. When we think about breaking our iftar, breaking our fast at iftar time, the first thing we think about is, oh, like it's savory time. So I think trying to reduce that or limiting your savories are quite important. Simple ideas would be to start off your fast with something different. Have your dates and some yogurt. If you can start off like that, start off by having your water and your kajur. And then start off with your meal. So have your nice, wholesome, well balanced meal, and then save your savories for afterwards. So rather have it after your tarawih in the evening, as a little snack, or after your meal when you're having your tea, have one or two savories. Make sure your fried savories are either baked or in the air fryer. In that way, you can reduce the amount of fat in them. And then, obviously, when it comes to Ramadan, we tend to enjoy having a dessert, later on in the evenings. So trying to limit that. I'm not saying don't include desserts. There are delicious desserts that you can include, that are sort of wholesome and better ideas. So most of the desserts that we tend to prepare are quite high in sugar. We use things like condensed milk and sugar to sweeten it up. We use full fat cream. So those are the types of things that we use in desserts. But having like a fresh fruit salad is a good idea. Baking some homemade muffins with all bran, adding nuts and seeds to it are a good idea to, have like a simple treat. Something simple like apple is quite delicious when you bake an apple. It releases all the sweet juices from there. So taking something like an apple, baking it, having it with a little bit of light custard or plain yogurt, and then sprinkling nuts and seeds over that are also a good idea. So all of these things are going to help to reduce your sugar intake in Ramadan, which are generally high. Even something like milkshake, we tend to enjoy having milkshake on the iftar table. So replacing milkshake with a smoothie that's made with low fat milk and fresh fruits are always a good idea. And it also gives you the same satisfaction that a sweetened milkshake would do, without all the added sugar and without all the added fat to it from the ice cream.
Hmm. But you know what? It's very interesting that you mention all of these recipes and all of these ingredients that we should be including in our diets, whether young or old. But I find that our older people are more inclined to their ways. I mean, they like their food and they prefer their food. So how do you change their mind and how do you, direct them towards eating healthier?
And it's so true. When you tell older people about changing their diet, they always say like, "No, just leave me alone. I've always done it this way, and there's nothing wrong with me. I'm still fine." Um, and I think also what we shouldn't do is to stress them out a lot about it, because I think with younger people, we're more accepting of changing our diet and looking for healthy alternatives. When it comes to elderly, they're so set in their ways, and taking things away from their diet, is actually more detrimental, that it sort of causes them to be a little upset in it. So,
Mhm,
something that I like to do is when I discuss diets with older people, I try not to discuss all the things that we should be removing from your diet. Okay. And I
mhm,
try to focus on things that we should be adding. So it's not me saying, or it's not us saying, don't eat this, don't eat that, don't have that. It's more us saying, why don't we include this? For example, simply in the
mhm,
morning, if they're used to having their bowl of oats in the morning, instead of saying, like, okay, you know what, let's not have honey in your oats, take out the honey, take out all the sugar that you're adding to your oats, let's change it up a bit and say, you know what, why don't we try adding some more fruits to your oats in the morning? And in that way, or let's use a kajur to sweeten your oats, instead of just saying, okay, don't have sugar. So giving them options on what they can add to their diet instead of what they can take away. Similarly, in the evening, for example, you want to reduce the amount of savories or something. So instead of saying, okay, we're not having savories today, use a different technique where we say, instead of savories today, we're having open bread sandwiches. Then you use whole wheat bread and you make a simple chicken mayo sandwich with that, and you top it with some roasted tomatoes if you like. You cook some spinach into that, or some avocado if you like. So instead of saying no savories, we're saying, we're trying something different today. So instead of a savory, we're having a sandwich, and we can plate it nicely so that it's not big, bulky sandwiches. It's cut up nicely, and it's just smaller amounts of it.
mhm. Well, that sounds like a great idea, but I do know that there are those grannies and grandpas who are like, nope, I am not going to eat that. But that's fine. Alhamdulillah, they may be set in their ways, but it also comes down to moderation. So they can have
Mm,
little of their favorite
okay,
treats that they
definitely.
enjoy having. Yeah. All right. Amina, so moving forward, what advice do you have for our viewers and our listeners, young or old, during this month of Ramadan to take full advantage of it?
Okay. So I think when it comes to Ramadan, we tend to focus a lot on food. What am I eating? What am I preparing? And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think food is so important as part of our life and part of our deen. I think that's so important. I mean, food is a way of bringing us closer to Allah Ta'ala. Simply using ways of using food as a way to increase your ibadah is always beneficial. Simply using sunnah foods every day, things like olive oil, even water is a sunnah. So when you add water to your cooking, you're making a soup, a stew, a curry, whatever it is. When you add water, say I'm adding water because water is a sunnah. Your whole pot of food has changed. The intention you make has completely changed, and you've gained so much of reward from that. So simply using foods that are sunnah foods are so important. And there's so many foods that are sunnah. We love to include pomegranates and figs when it's Ramadan time, and we know that they sunnah foods. But when you eat them, you don't say I'm eating these foods because they are sunnah and to gain reward. So simply using that as a means to gain reward is quite important. I always say when it comes to food, food is a blessing from Allah Ta'ala, and it's a means of us gaining closeness, and that's what Ramadan is about. It's not about food, but I think it's more about appreciating food. That is so important. We stay away from food the whole day, and when we break our meal, we need to understand that it's us being appreciative of our meals. It's us thanking Allah for having food every day on our tables. And I think we should move away from the focus on let me try this new recipe. It's trending now. Let me do this. Let me try this new thing. I think we need to focus more on the importance of food. Food is a means of nourishment in our lives, and that's what we need to remember from the month of Ramadan, that it's a means of nourishment. Every time you eat, it's an opportunity to nourish your body. And by eating well, you are nourishing your body to for prayer, for ibadah, for strength during the day to perform actions, good actions, and beneficial actions. So I think if we can take that away from our meals in Ramadan, I think it's quite important.
Mhm. All right, shukran, Amina, for your time and for sharing that information and insight with us. I hope our elderly, whoever was listening, I hope they take heed of the advice. And if you have parents, you have grandparents who are fasting and who want to fast but they can't, make sure that they visit their doctor so that they. I mean, it's still early days, but they can still fast for a few days and make sure that they know what they're getting themselves into before going full on. And as Amina said, just sunnah foods are so important. You don't need to go all out. You can do with the little that you have. Fasting is all, I mean, the month of Ramadan is all about moderation. It's all about gratitude. It's all
Mhm.
about the smallest things that you have that you share with everyone. It's not just to keep to yourself and hoard it to yourself. It's for everybody to get a taste of the blessings of this beautiful month. Amina, shukran so much for your time once again. And before you leave us, how can we find you? Are you on any social media platforms?
Yes, definitely. So we are on Instagram. You can find us at Elementary RTSA. That's our Instagram page. We do share a lot of information, especially now in Ramadan. We've been sharing quite a bit of information. We actually launched a healthy eating guide for Ramadan. So it's a booklet with over 100 recipes. It's all our common everyday recipes that we want to showcase that they can be part of a healthy diet. We don't have to be eating bland foods to be healthy. We can include all our cultural foods in as part of our diet. So that's what we try to accomplish with the book. So search our page and have a look out for that.
All right. Shukran. Have a wonderful day. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Amina Dindar, a dietitian, taking us through how you can fast if you are an elderly person or you have a comorbidity. And it's very important to visit your doctor beforehand, perhaps a week in advance, so that your doctor can advise you, give you the advice on whether you can fast or not, and to adjust your medication accordingly. So also, I'd just like to point out that if you are a caffeine lover, if you love your coffee and your black tea, you should have cut down already before the month of Ramadan, because what caffeine does, it's a diuretic and it causes you to urinate more. And obviously, when you urinate more, you become dehydrated. Your body loses a lot more water. And that's what you want to avoid, because you want to stay hydrated during the month of Ramadan and while you are fasting. Also, try and avoid foods that are high in sugar and salt, because sugar causes your blood levels to increase and then drop quickly. So for suhoor, for seri, you want to make sure that you're not bulking up on the sugar. You're not having too much sugar in your breakfast. Instead, try to include a lot more fruit. I know fruits have sugar, but they also have other necessary vitamins, minerals, etc., and fibers as well. And you also want to cut down on salt, because foods high in salt can increase the risk of a stroke and also of heart failure and kidney disease. So everything comes down to moderation. It comes down to a balance, having a little bit of this and a little bit of that. You know, it's a this and a that, a yin and a yang. And you also want to check your blood levels, your blood sugar levels more often. You want to cut down on smoking. If you are a smoker, try to cut down on smoking. Control your portion sizes. Now is the best time to control your portion sizes, so that when you leave the month of Ramadan, you have sorted out your portion sizes. Your stomach has shrunk and it can only take that much of food compared to before. You want to also drink more fluids. And when we're talking fluids, we're not talking about sugary fluids. We're not talking about your sodas, your favorite sodas, etc. We're talking about more water. You can flavor your own water with fruits, with whatever fruits are still available in season, and eat more low GI foods and get enough sleep. I know sometimes we complain about not getting enough sleep and that we're so tired and we can't get up, blah, blah, blah. But if you sleep early, you'll be able to get up earlier, and you'll also be able to get more sleep and get suitable exercises. Walking is a simple exercise that everybody can do, or almost everybody can do. And we know that 10,000 steps a day for a healthy heart is the goal. But if you can't, at least 6,000 steps a day. And have your suhoor a little later, instead of having it like 30 minutes before the Fajr Salah. Try to have it maybe 20 minutes before Fajr Salah. You can also prepare the night before, so that, you know, when you wake up, freshen up, you have your suhoor, wait for the time to stop eating and make your Salah, etc. And obviously have healthy, nutritious snacks during iftar. Reach for the dates, reach for the sunnah food and fruit, reach for the water, reach for all other fruits and veggies, and lay off the fried foods, lay off the yummy stuff. And they are yummy, and I'm not saying you shouldn't have, but if you can have them a little in moderation. Instead of having 5 samosas like you used to, have 3, cut down. And inshallah, this lifestyle you can carry with you throughout your life, instead of just starting the month of Ramadan and leave it in the month of Ramadan. Um, if you have any further comments or questions, we would love to hear from you. Please leave them in the comment section. You are listening to the Ramadan edition of the Mid Morning Talk with me, excuse me, with me, Mari Mokwanda. We will be right back.